If you had strolled down London's streets during the summer months of 1945, your eyes would have caught glimpses of banners draped across windowsills, while your ears absorbed the triumphant pealing of church bells. Victory had arrived. The German Reich lay in ruins. Britain emerged triumphant among the victors of humanity's most devastating war. Historical images captured jubilant masses flooding Trafalgar Square, brandishing Union Jacks and shouting themselves hoarse with celebration. Yet underneath all that jubilation and falling streamers existed an uncomfortable truth nobody dared speak aloud: the deafening quiet of depleted coffers. Britain had emerged triumphant on battlefields across continents, yet had suffered catastrophic defeat in its accounting books. While bombardments had ceased, financial obligations were only beginning their relentless arrival. The nation that previously underwrote half the planet's economy now found itself discreetly pleading for extensions and lines of credit, not from defeated foes, but from wartime partners, not from military hardware, but for basic necessities like grain, coal, and mere continuation. To grasp how the British Empire genuinely collapsed, we must shift our focus away from territorial maps and military formations toward financial records. We're commonly instructed that empires perish through military conquest. We're shown narratives where foreign invaders breach defensive walls or subjugated territories launch armed uprisings. Yet Britain's empire didn't meet its end through martial defeat. It expired through financial documentation. Its dismantlement came not from armed revolutionaries, but from financial analysts in Washington and Wall Street bankers who grasped one straightforward yet devastating reality: whoever controls the debt controls the debtor. Prior to global conflict, Britain commanded unquestioned authority as the world's financial center. London functioned as global finance's beating heart. The sterling monetary zone represented an immense economic network spanning 1/4 of Earth's surface. From Australian ports to Indian markets, from Egyptian bazaars to South African exchanges, international commerce operated in British currency. Capital streamed into London from every imperial territory, then redistributed outward like vital fluid through an imperial organism. This monetary supremacy enabled Britain to wield influence far exceeding its physical size. It maintained the world's most formidable navy, projected authority throughout Middle Eastern and Asian regions, and sustained trade imbalances because global commerce perpetually required sterling. The pound wasn't merely currency, it was the lifeblood of international trade. British banks financed railways in Argentina, mines in South Africa, and plantations across Southeast Asia. Every transaction strengthened London's grip on the global economy. Yet warfare transformed everything fundamentally. Confronting the Nazi military apparatus required Britain to expend resources it didn't possess at historically unprecedented velocity. Manufacturing plants operated continuously around the clock. Naval vessels were constructed, destroyed, then reconstructed. Entire urban centers suffered bombardment and underwent reconstruction while hostilities continued. The empire mobilized not for commercial gain, but for sheer existence. And existence carries enormous costs. Consider the scale of expenditure. Britain was spending roughly half its entire national income on the war effort. Factories that once produced consumer goods now manufactured tanks, aircraft, and ammunition. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers. The entire nation became a war machine, consuming resources at a rate that would have been unimaginable just years earlier. By 1945's conclusion, Britain's financial obligations exceeded any previous historical debt burden. This wasn't theoretical liability, it was tangible and crushing. Britain had liquidated overseas investments to purchase weaponry. It had sold off holdings in American transportation infrastructure and Argentine agricultural estates that required generations to accumulate. It had extracted gold reserves from Bank of England storage facilities and transported them westward across the Atlantic.
However, the war's most startling financial manipulation wasn't American borrowing, it was extracting resources from the empire itself. This represents a frequently excluded historical chapter known as sterling balances. For prosecuting warfare across Asian and North African theaters, Britain required provisions, uniforms, sustenance, munitions, and raw commodities. Substantial portions originated from India. Yet Britain lacked funds to compensate India for these materials, so they engineered a mechanism that essentially functioned as an enormous compulsory loan. When British military commanders in India procured supplies, they didn't compensate Indian producers with gold or dollars, but with rupees. But where did these rupees originate? They were manufactured by the colonial administration in Delhi. In exchange for printing these rupees, London's British government deposited promissory notes in London banking accounts, the so-called sterling balances. Superficially, India appeared to prosper. The London account balance expanded beyond £1.3 billion, an astronomical figure, representing approximately $45 billion in contemporary currency. But reality revealed systematic exploitation. The inflation flooding Indian markets triggered massive inflation. Prices skyrocketed uncontrollably. Bengal's impoverished population could no longer purchase rice because monetary supply had inflated to finance British warfare. This directly caused the 1943 Bengal famine that claimed millions of lives. Britain essentially waged war using credit cards issued under starving subjects' names. The strategy was transparent. Britain would achieve victory, then somehow reimburse India eventually, perhaps. Yet the primary creditor wasn't India, it was the United States. The wartime relationship between Britain and America was publicly portrayed as equal partnership, two great English-speaking democracies united against oppression. Churchill and Roosevelt appeared as companions sharing visions of liberty. Yet beneath diplomatic ceremonies and photographic opportunities, the power dynamic had shifted irreversibly. America held creditor status, Britain occupied debtor position, and debtors never dictate terms.
Initially during conflict, Britain compensated America for armaments under arrangements termed cash and carry. Britain literally transferred gold and currency for every weapon and vehicle. When cash depleted, Britain approached Roosevelt with a straightforward predicament. Without American assistance, Britain faced defeat. Roosevelt provided help, but nothing came freely. It arrived with stipulations that would reshape the post-war landscape. The arrangement became known as Lend-Lease. Superficially, it appeared magnanimous. America would loan Britain weapons, provisions, petroleum, and raw materials throughout warfare's duration. Britain would settle accounts later or return equipment. Yet Americans inserted provisions into Lend-Lease agreements deliberately designed to fracture Britain's economic monopoly. They insisted Britain commit to dissolving the imperial preference system, the trade framework favoring empire goods over external products. This was the economic binding holding the empire intact. America demanded that binding's dissolution. They sought access to Indian, African, and Australian markets. They wanted Britain's empire transformed from closed system to open marketplace for American exports. Throughout warfare, British economists like John Maynard Keynes fought desperate defensive operations against American planners like Harry Dexter White. This confrontation reached its climax at the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference. Bretton Woods gains recognition for establishing the IMF and World Bank, but Bretton Woods' authentic narrative is Britain's defeat. Keynes arrived proposing a plan to salvage British economics through a new global currency called the Bancor, designed to assist debtor nations like Britain by penalizing creditor nations like America. It represented brilliant architecture that would have permitted Britain's graceful recovery. Harry Dexter White, America's negotiator, demolished it completely. He understood America possessed all leverage. He knew Britain faced bankruptcy. He demanded a framework constructed around US dollars and gold reserves, a system benefiting the nation holding wealth. Britain possessed no alternative but acceptance. They were authorizing their own execution warrant as global authority. Then came the devastating blow. When 1945 warfare concluded, Britain anticipated Lend-Lease arrangements would continue temporarily, permitting recovery. The nation was depleted. Rationing intensified after warfare beyond wartime levels. Bread remained unavailable. Coal was scarce. Housing infrastructure lay pulverized. Yet the instant Japan surrendered in August 1945, President Truman abruptly severed supply lines without warning. One day supplies flowed freely, the next they halted completely. Vessels already at sea transporting wheat and petroleum toward Britain received orders to reverse course and return to America unless Britain could provide immediate cash payment. Britain possessed no cash reserves, it had no dollars, its gold had vanished, its industrial capacity was exhausted. Britain had achieved military victory, yet lost the peace within a single afternoon. With no remaining options, the British government dispatched a delegation to Washington led by Keynes. They weren't negotiating as equals, they were supplicating. Keynes hoped for a grant, a gift from one ally recognizing Britain's sacrifice. The Americans refused. No gift would materialize, only a loan. And the loan arrived with restrictions so constricting they would strangle British economics for decades. In 1946, Britain executed the Anglo-American Loan Agreement, borrowing $3.75 billion, America's largest loan issuance ever. But the stipulations proved lethal. First condition, Britain must pay interest. This shocked the British public, who believed they'd fought a shared war. Second condition, Britain must dismantle the sterling area. Americans demanded sterling convertibility, meaning anyone holding British pounds, whether Egyptian merchants or Australian banks, could demand exchange for US dollars. This was a deliberate trap. America recognized everyone globally desired dollars for purchasing American products. Nobody wanted pounds for British goods because British industry lay destroyed. If Britain enacted pound convertibility, everyone would liquidate pounds for dollars. Britain's reserves would drain instantly. Keynes issued warnings against this. He stated it was premature. He argued British economics remained too fragile, but Americans remained adamant. They wanted British markets opened. They wanted the empire's protective barriers demolished. Britain signed. They accepted the funds because survival necessitated it. The crisis materialized exactly as forecasted. In 1947, Britain fulfilled its commitment and enacted sterling convertibility. The outcome was financial carnage. Within weeks, countries worldwide rushed to dispose of British pounds and acquire American dollars. Britain's foreign currency reserves drained at terrifying velocity. It was a bank run, but the bank was the United Kingdom. The government panicked. Convertibility was suspended after merely 5 weeks, but the damage was irreversible. The loan intended to last years had burned through within months. Confidence in sterling shattered completely. The illusion of British financial supremacy evaporated. From that moment forward, Britain no longer functioned as global financial authority, but as a supplicant, a client state. Every London policy decision now faced constraints from currency defense requirements. Every government budget was haunted by capital flight fears. The empire itself was becoming prohibitively expensive to maintain. Sustaining overseas installations, military garrisons, and administrative structures required funds Britain no longer possessed. The colonies had transformed from assets to liabilities. India departed first, the crown jewel. Britain owed India billions in those sterling balances. It couldn't pay. It couldn't afford governance. It couldn't afford policing escalating tensions. In 1947, Britain exited India, not following lengthy transition, not after meticulous planning, but hastily. The decision was made swiftly and executed poorly. The consequence was partition, violence, and chaos. Britain didn't depart as confident imperial authority reshaping the world, but as a bankrupt landlord fleeing a building he could no longer maintain. Other colonies followed suit. Palestine was abandoned to turmoil. Burma was released. Ceylon gained independence. Across African and Asian territories, identical patterns repeated.
Britain didn't fight to preserve the empire because it couldn't afford the overhead. By the 1940s conclusion, Britain had stabilized but at diminished capacity. It had accepted junior partner status. Yet humiliation wasn't finished. The financial noose continued tightening. The pound was fixed at $4.03 before warfare, a symbol of British strength. But in 1949, with the economy struggling and dollar shortage acute, the British government was compelled to do the unthinkable. They devalued the pound. Overnight, every British person's pocket money dropped 30% against the dollar. It was public failure admission, an acknowledgement that Britain could no longer compete. The exchange rate fell to $2.80. The 1940s concluded with Britain victorious yet shattered. The empire was dissolving, the currency was devalued, the debt was mountainous. The 1950s were designated the recovery era. There existed a perception that the worst had passed, yet behind the ceremony, financial decay was metastasizing. The British economy suffered from a chronic ailment known as stop-go. When the government attempted economic stimulation for growth, imports would surge. Because British industry was uncompetitive, people purchased German appliances and American automobiles instead of British ones. This triggered a balance of payments crisis. Capital flowed outward, the pound weakened. To preserve the pound, the government would apply emergency brakes, elevating interest rates and reducing expenditures. The economy would halt. This cycle perpetuated itself repeatedly. Britain couldn't grow without going broke. Yet the political class refused accepting their diminished status. They clung to notions that Britain remained a superpower. This delusion collided with reality in 1956 at Suez. The Suez Canal was the empire's jugular vein. When Egyptian President Nasser nationalized it, Britain perceived existential threat. Prime Minister Anthony Eden conspired with France and Israel to launch secret invasion. Militarily, the operation succeeded. British paratroopers secured objectives. The Egyptian army was routed. Yet the battle wasn't decided on Egyptian sands, but in Washington. President Eisenhower was enraged. He attacked the pound. The U.S. Treasury liquidated British pounds on currency markets. Sterling's value plummeted. Britain needed emergency IMF funds. Eisenhower blocked the request. He informed Britain bluntly that without troop withdrawal, he would crash their economy. Britain was days from bankruptcy. Eden had no choice. He ordered withdrawal. Suez was the moment illusion died. The world witnessed Britain could no longer act independently. After Suez came the 1960s, culturally revolutionary but economically declining. The empire continued dissolving. The pound remained fixed at $2.80, but this rate was excessive. By mid-decade, defending it was impossible. Prime Minister Harold Wilson fought a 3-year battle. He sacrificed everything. He lost. In November 1967, Wilson was forced to devalue from $2.80